In the heart of the Transkei, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, lay the small Kosa village of Nkalini. It was a place where traditions ran deep, and stories were passed down through generations around the warm glow of evening fires. One cold, moonless night, an unsettling silence enveloped the village. The usual chorus of crickets and night birds had vanished, replaced by an eerie stillness. The villagers whispered among themselves, speaking of the ancient curse that haunted their land. Long ago, the village had been home to a powerful Sangoma, Nomhle, whose healing abilities were known far and wide. But Nomhle had a dark secret. She had made a pact with the spirits of the forest, trading her soul for her extraordinary powers. As part of this pact, she was cursed to wander the earth as a shadow after her death, whispering to those who strayed too far into the night. Generations had passed since Nomhle's time, but the villagers still believed her spirit roamed the forests, waiting for the unwary. It was said that anyone who heard her whisper would be doomed to disappear, never to be seen again. On this particular night, young Letha, a curious and adventurous boy, decided to test the legend. Despite his grandmother's stern warnings, he ventured into the forest. Armed with only a small lantern, he followed the narrow path that led deep into the woods. The air grew colder, and an unnatural fog began to swirl around him. As he walked, he heard a faint whisper. It was so soft that at first, he thought it was the wind. But as he listened more closely, he realized it was a woman's voice, calling his name, Letha. Letha. Fear gripped his heart, but his curiosity pushed him forward. He followed the voice, which seemed to come from all directions at once. The deeper he went, the more disoriented he became. The trees, once familiar, now loomed menacingly, their twisted branches like skeletal hands reaching out to grab him. Letha. Letha, the whisper grew louder, more insistent. Suddenly, his lantern flickered and went out, plunging him into darkness. Panic set in as he fumbled for a match to relight it, but his hands trembled so much that he dropped them all. Letha, you shouldn't have come. He spun around, trying to pinpoint the source of the voice, but the fog was so thick he could barely see his own hands. Then, he saw it, a shadowy figure gliding towards him. It was indistinct, more like a wisp of smoke than a solid form, but he could feel its eyes on him, cold and unblinking. With a surge of adrenaline, Letha turned and ran, crashing through the underbrush. The whispers followed him, echoing in his ears, growing louder and more frantic. You can't escape, Letha. He burst out of the forest, gasping for breath, and stumbled back into the village. The elders were waiting, their faces grave. They knew what had happened. Letha's grandmother approached him, her eyes filled with sorrow. You have heard Nomhle's whisper, she said softly. The curse is upon you. From that night on, Letha was never the same. He grew quiet and withdrawn, his eyes always darting to the shadows as if expecting the ghostly figure to reappear. The villagers kept a close watch on him, but they knew it was only a matter of time. A week later, Letha vanished. His disappearance was swift and silent, with no trace left behind. The villagers mourned, but they were not surprised. The curse of Nomhle was a powerful one, and those who heard her whisper were destined to join her in the shadows. To this day, the people of Nkalini speak of Letha and the whispering shadows. They warn their children never to venture into the forest at night, for Nomhle's spirit still wanders, seeking souls to keep her company in the eternal darkness. And if you listen closely, on a cold, moonless night, you might hear it too, the faint whisper that chills the blood and beckons you into the unknown.